So welcome back to my channel, and for today I'm going to be taking a look at this pair of natural shell cordovan strands from Allen Edmonds. These are about as ideal as I could ask for as far as getting a pair of natural shell strands. This is exactly what I wanted many years ago, and it's kind of funny that a pair showed up when I least expected it in 2025 after the trunk show. Yes, these are factory seconds, but the imperfections are so small that they could almost pass for firsts. And to give you a brief backstory, I wanted a pair of these several years ago, but natural shell was just not available for a number of years. So in 2019, I compromised by trying to get a pair in bourbon shell. And I wanted them to look as close as possible to this pair. I wanted them to have a natural sole edge and a beige stitch on the welt. And I also wanted them to be a double leather sole, JR sole that is. And really, this is exactly what I imagined many years ago. So when I got a pair of bourbon shell in 2019 at the trunk show, unfortunately, Allen Edmonds, for whatever reason, messed up my order 2 times. I'm not sure exactly why. But when I received the second pair, which was still not exactly what I wanted, I just asked them if I could keep them as factory seconds because I hated seeing shell cordovan go to waste. So I just compromised basically. And then a few years later, I sold my pair of bourbon shell to someone. That was because I found a pair of Rush Street shoes, which basically is what I was trying to go for. I wanted something that looked like the Rush Street because I never expected to come across the Rush Street. So for this video, I'm going to do something a little different. Instead of telling you all the detail about the last and the strand, instead of doing what I usually do, which you all have heard probably many times, I'm going to show you lots of video of this pair of strands, which I haven't even worn yet. But I'm also going to tell you how is it that I discovered Allen Edmonds, what was my journey like in the early days. Some of the things I say in this story might surprise you a little bit, so I hope you'll find this interesting. So my story began in 2015. At that time, I had just started a new role with a new company, and I had to step up my wardrobe just a little bit. In previous years, I had been wearing mostly Sears shoes that I got for around $40, and to be honest, I had no interest in dress shoes at all. In fact, I kind of disliked dress shoes because I thought they were so uncomfortable. I did have a pair of Rockports that I would wear occasionally, but I just found them extremely uncomfortable. So most of the time I was wearing these really cheap shoes from Sears, and then I was sticking insoles inside the shoes to try to make them more comfortable. Now, why was I doing this? Well, back in 2009-2010, I had developed a health problem. And that was, I had something which I do not know the official name for, but it basically is pressure hives. So I would get hives very easily all over my body, and all it took was just a little bit of pressure. If I was, for example, lifting weights at a gym, then I would have hives on my hands within a couple of hours after going to the gym. Sometimes if I would sit on a wooden park bench, I would get hives on my back or just anywhere on my body. And then oftentimes when I would go to sleep at night, the hives would be bad enough that I would have a mild fever because there were so many hives all over my body. So this was a very annoying and frustrating disease that I had, and it started in 2009 for me. Now fast forward to 2015, that was when I knew I had to get a pair of dress shoes. One of my friends recommended Allen Edmonds or Cole Haan. I decided to try Allen Edmonds because they were made in USA. And yes, in 2015, I still had this health problem. So when I first walked into the Costa Mesa store in California, I was looking for the most comfortable pair that I could find. The associate that I first met's name was Alex, and Alex had pointed me to a couple of different shoes. And for whatever reason, I was very interested in the split toe shoes at the beginning. It's very strange looking back on it now because I don't really have a huge interest in split toes anymore, but when I first started, that's what just appealed to me in the beginning. So the pair I ended up buying was a pair called the Ashton, which has an insole inside the shoe. It actually has a leather sole that you put inside the shoe for additional comfort. I believe these shoes are designed for men that have foot issues, so they were very appropriate for the problem that I was having with my health. Now, the first time I wore them to work, my feet ended up getting hives all over them, and my feet swelled up so much that I had to take off my shoes because I couldn't even fit my feet in the shoes. That's how bad it was. So I thought I made a mistake. I thought, oh no, these shoes are not going to work out. It just makes my hives worse. As it turned out, as I kept wearing them, within just a few days later, I found out that they were not causing me hives nearly as much as my previous cheap shoes. In fact, I wore them to work for many days consecutively, and I did not have hives. And this just totally surprised me because I would have thought that a shoe that was a little more firm, that was made out of leather, would have been more difficult on my feet. But it turned out that the softer shoes were actually making this health condition worse. So it was very surprising and eye-opening to discover that leather shoes were a lot better for my feet and the health issue that I was experiencing. So without even realizing it, I just started to get a natural interest in Allen Edmonds shoes because they were making my life a lot easier with the problem that I was having. So I ended up buying a few more pairs. I bought a pair of Malone shoes, which is another split toe. And then a little later, I picked up a pair of Wilbert shoes, which are widely known as being extremely comfortable because they have a very padded pour-on insole. So I had 3 split toe shoes, and some might say my early taste in Allen Edmonds were a bit fuddy-duddy-ish or old man-like. And then I eventually branched out a bit and got a pair of Carlisle shoes. Now, it should be clear that most of my pairs in the very beginning, they all had a pour-on insole or something equivalent to that. Those were the most comfortable shoes that I could wear from Allen Edmonds. They were a little bit more forgiving than, say, the regular leather insoles that you get on a Park Avenue. But I eventually did branch out into other shoes, like the Carlisle shoe, which has a regular leather insole and also a pair of leads. And I was surprised that both of those I could still wear most of the time just fine. I did have a little bit of pain in my feet when I was breaking them in, but not anywhere near as bad as those cheap Sears shoes that I was wearing. So without even really being aware of it, I was becoming more and more interested in leather shoes, and especially Allen Edmonds. Now, fast forward to 2016, my health problem had completely gone away. I no longer had this problem with the hives. I think it was some kind of autoimmune issue, and I don't know for sure, but I am convinced it was because I ate very poorly in my late 20s. I ate a lot of fast food during those times. Even though it was supposed to be healthy fast food, a lot of it really wasn't. And I met my wife in 2015, and she started making food for me every day, and then that food was a lot healthier than what I was eating. So I believe my body repaired itself over time. So if anyone listening is suffering from an autoimmune disease, maybe you can turn it around with diet. I can't say for sure, but it worked for me. So that's how I started with Allen Edmonds in the beginning. But how do I feel about the brand right now? Well, there's another YouTube content creator who went by the name Dress Well, but I think his channel's changed to something called Industry and Purity now. He has very entertaining videos. He did one on Gucci recently, which was very entertaining and also very interesting. He also did a video on Allen Edmonds shoes. There was a lot of criticism in his video, and I don't think most of what he said was wrong. I actually don't disagree with very much of what he said. Unfortunately, I do think Allen Edmonds has had some problems over the years. And I think most men know that you can certainly find a shoe with better finishing and better quality for $300 if you don't mind buying something that's not made in the USA. You can certainly find that. That's where some of the criticism came from in that video that he made. And he really went into the fine detail of the shoes. And overall, I enjoyed the video. I thought it was very well done. Now, having said that, not everything that bothered him about Allen Edmonds shoes is something that bothers me. One of the reasons is because I know Allen Edmonds shoes often do have small imperfections, but I don't mind because those imperfections are going to show up anyway after a few weeks of wear. Anyone who's bought a pair of leather shoes, no matter what brand it is, you're going to see some blemishes show up within a couple weeks, and there's really not much you can do about it. So those really small imperfections that you often see on Allen Edmonds shoes, they don't usually bother me because they're going to appear there anyway. And that's the case with Alden shoes and every other brand that I own. But if you want something that's going to give you a little more perfection for your money, that's a similar price to Allen Edmonds, there certainly are better options out there. But how I basically feel about the brand is that I think the period from 2012 to 2020, that was really like the peak of the creative time for Allen Edmonds, especially from 2012 to 2015. There were so many very interesting shoes that they created during this period. Shoes like the Rush Street, the Overlord, which came out a little bit later, 2016, the University shoe, and then there were so many other dress casual models, like variations of the Strand or the McAllister in some kind of casual leather. And these were like exactly what I had been looking for once I continued to develop an interest in Allen Edmonds shoes. But now I feel like the brand has changed quite a lot. It's not just the sneakers. That's not the only issue for me. After all, even John Lobb is selling sneakers these days. But I'm just not seeing as many dress casual models that were as interesting as the ones from 8, 10, 12 years ago. Occasionally there will be something that I really like. The Strand Mock in denim was a really nice casual shoe that came out in 2021, I think. I picked those up. Occasionally there will be something very interesting, but just speaking in general, there's not as many models in recent years that I've been as interested in. Not counting the trunk show. The trunk shows have been great, but I'm just talking about their regular offerings. I own more shoes from Allen Edmonds than any other brand. Will that be the case in the future? I don't know. If the direction of the brand keeps going this direction, I'm probably not going to buy that many in the future, but it's possible they might change. Perhaps they will change direction. But just generally speaking, I'm still a huge fan of the brand. I would love to visit the factory someday. I'm one of the few YouTube content creators that has done a lot of reviews about Allen Edmonds, but I've never actually visited the factory in Port Washington. So if they do ever invite me out, I would love to go someday. But I'm going to close with talking about one area that I think Allen Edmonds does not get enough credit for, and that is with some of their designs. For example, the Park Avenue is one of the best designed cap-toe dress shoes in the world. Now, it may not speak to everyone. Some people may want something that's a little more dressy, but you cannot tell me that the Park Avenue is a bad-looking shoe. It's very well designed, from having the 6 eyelets to having the triple stitch in the middle of the shoe, and then a nice shape to the 65 last. It's just a very well designed cap-toe shoe. And the Strand is arguably even better. I am yet to see another brand put out a version of the brogue cap-toe like the Strand that looks as good. I have not seen it yet. Now there are some brands that come close. I've seen some brogue cap-toes from Cheney that looked very, very good. But just generally speaking, I think Allen Edmonds has the right design to some of their shoes that other makers just kind of miss the mark a little bit. The Strand just looks perfectly balanced with its design, and it has 6 eyelets. Very few brogue cap-toe makers out there have 6 eyelets on their Balmoral. And I think that's why the Strand has done so well. A lot of people just see it and instantly know it's very well balanced. It's a very good design. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying every Allen Edmonds design is great. No. They have their share of ugly shoes. They've put out a lot of really weird stuff over the years. But I admire that they're willing to take risks. I really do. Because some brands do not really take many risks, such as like Crockett & Jones. They don't really branch out that much. Allen Edmonds, on the other hand, they definitely take some risks, and sometimes they fail. But I'm glad that they do take them. So my point is that I think Allen Edmonds does not always get enough appreciation for some of the designs that they have. They have put out some really good designs and they've stood the test of time. Now, whether or not the 65 last works for you or not, that's a whole other discussion. And I get that there's a lot of men that cannot fit into that last, and I know that just sucks. It's terrible that a lot of men cannot wear the 65 last. I get it. But if it does work for you, as it does for me, you'll discover that you have unlocked a key to a ton of different interesting dressy and casual models that they've put out over the years. Well, I hope you got something useful out of this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.